So good evening and welcome to BUS310. I apologize in advance. I am in the process of losing my voice, but I do promise to project as long as possible. If there are pauses in the presentation tonight, it is very likely that I have muted the presentation as I may need to. I have a tickle in my throat or a cough and I don't want you to be exposed to that. So here we go. First of all, a couple announcement things. Thank you for your emails, keeping me up to date on how you're doing. There was a problem with one of the quiz questions that was brought to my attention by a couple different students. So I think Marisol and Sherry, I think. So Sherry, thank you. And for whatever reason, it was giving you the correct response back, but it was marking the wrong answer. I am almost 99.9% sure that it would have been human error on my end. So what I've done is I've gone through that quiz and all of you have received credit for that question. I want to say it was number 2 on mini number 3. So if you've already taken the quiz, the correct answer will definitely mark now, but anybody who had attempted that question should now have points for that. So thank you so much. Thank you for number 2 for bringing that to my attention. And again, any human error, things like that, please don't be shy. We're all in this together. Okay. Now, I know some of you were very, very overwhelmed last week, and I'm hoping that tonight is a little less overwhelming for you. But having said that, there's a lot of information to cover. So remember, you can always look at this video at any time. I'm hoping you're getting into kind of the pace of the items. This week, I've tried a little something different for organization purposes because you are literally looking at 3 different things this week. You're doing chapter 2, you're doing chapter 3. I'm introducing you to some of the formal report resources. Now, having said that, I want you to be very, very careful. I give you everything up front regarding your formal report. However, there's only one piece you need to do now, which is your purpose statement. So even though I'm giving you everything, which can be very, very overwhelming, we're working on this 1 week at a time. So I'm going to introduce you to that tonight, all right? So first of all, let's get down to the meat of this week. Homework is due tonight at midnight, and then I start grading as soon as possible. I start looking at some of them tonight, and then I'll continue to look through with the goal of having all grades posted for you from chapter 1 by midnight Tuesday night. So you wake up to them on Wednesday and any feedback. Now, for those of you, when I leave you feedback, if I take off points, you absolutely can make those corrections and resubmit as well, with the exception of quizzes. So fear not. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 2. In chapter 2, we're talking about working with others and interpersonal, intercultural, and team communication. So with that as your theme, let's look at the resources. Okay, so in theory, this should jump you right to the resources. The resources will look like this. We'll talk about our learning objectives, how to work together, and in chapter 2, there are 5 study questions. I then have the videos available for you. And these videos were done when I still had a voice, so yay team. In this part, I simply break it to part 1 and part 2. I also provide for you the slides and the slides with script and notes if needed. Sometimes my students like to see the slides or follow the notes as they watch the videos. Okay, here's some little add-ons for you. First of all, when we talk about thinking flexibly in the workplace, That is one of the basic soft skills that is needed when it comes to interpersonal communication. So I've placed some information for you here to consider what is thinking flexibly and what does it mean when people are flexible versus thinking flexible. What does it look like and what does it sound like? So I've actually got narrative for you here to look at as well. This particular window will take you to a great article in Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine has a great article on 10 steps to effective listening. I want you to take a look at this and see how you can apply this in your day-to-day contact. Next resources, just like last week, if this was an in-class meeting, we would have an agenda and a worksheet would be going by. And this is an exact copy of the study questions that would be included. Nothing you need to do with it. It's for informational purposes only. One of the things when we talk about working internationally and working abroad is really being aware of the resources. American Express has an absolutely fabulous international working website that gives you some great tips and tricks to working internationally and how to make some of those nasty faux pas and avoid when you're working with different nationalities. Also, businessculture.org as a business professional should absolutely be one of the resources that you put in your pocket. This is a great guide to Northern Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, and Western Europe, and the business cultures and some best practices. Also in Chapter 2, when we talk about words that can be confusing, understanding ambiguous words and why when I say one thing, fake, tall, short, stop, swing, how many exact meanings there are. This is an example about when we use our language, exactly how many different meanings there are to different words in the English language. Just a resource. It's fascinating and good for cocktail conversation. One of the first activities that I want you to do this week is when we talk about working with others, it's really understanding ourselves. This is a personality test that I'd like for you to take. Very similar to Kirsty Myers. And many of you may have had this before, and you should test pretty consistently. So this is simply respond either in text or document. How did you assess on this? Do you agree or disagree with the assessment? And how could you use this information to better work with others? My BCom Lab. With my BCom Lab assignments this week for both chapters 2 and 3, you're going to notice that you have the warm-up, DSM, the video, simulations, and document makeovers, as well as the quizzes. You'll have this for both chapter 2 and chapter 3. But you'll also notice that I've added some information for you. By no means is this information required. For those of you that completed the assessment, you'll notice that I've replaced your scores with full 50 points. With that, several of you, okay, which video? Okay, so Rachel's asking a question. Where is the video located? When I click the video link, it just takes me to the questions. Okay, you need to actually make sure that your pop-up blocker, Rachel, much like chapter 1, if you haven't used My BCom Lab, please make sure your pop-up blocker is turned off. If you're having problems with My BCom Lab, please make sure to use the technical support and they can walk you through disarming your pop-up blockers. But good question. So in My BCom Lab as well, what I've done is I've put tutorials for all of the topics that are grammatically addressing you. So we've got nouns, pronouns, verb tense, subject-verb agreement, adjectives, adverbs, sentences, punctuation, modifiers, parallelism, comparisons, avoiding wordiness, transitional phrases, capitalization, and word choices. None of these are required. However, my students have all marked remarkable progress in their writing when they've chosen to kind of dive in and test their own skills and develop their skills using this. Yeah, dashes and commas are huge. Also, the use of colons and semicolons can be potentially problematic. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go through some of the other resources as well. Let's go back. So once you're done with My BCom Lab, you're going to keep on kind of the learning phase. You were exposed to the material, you read the book, you watched the slideshows, you saw my slides, you've learned the content, you've done My BCom Lab activities. Then for every chapter, there will be one assignment, either a discussion or a written activity. In this particular written activity, it's out of the book, and it's key concepts number 4. So this is chapter 2, key concepts number 4. So if you look at your textbook and you go to chapter 2 and you come to the end of the chapter, you'll notice there's something called key concept exercises. Once again, if you have access to the ebook, it'll be right here for you. This particular one is number 4, and you'll notice there is A, B, C, turning to the next page slowly, okay? A, B, and C. So in this particular case, although there's no absolute female communication style or male communication style, researchers in social linguistics have identified a number of widespread differences between the way men and women typically communicate. In business, people need to accommodate different styles in order to work well together. In small groups, or like the whole class, discuss the following 3 scenarios. In your past experience, have you noticed these type of differences? How would you recommend the participants to bridge their differences? So notice there's 2 different pieces here. There's in your past experiences, have you noticed different types of experiences, and what would you recommend? This is a free writing exercise, but please separate the A, the B, and the C responses. This is on the topic of comprehending and interpreting, being aware of gender-specific communication styles. On this topic, one of the signature block notations that you may have been noticing more and more in the business workplace and in the workplace in general is at the end of a signature block, individuals identifying their preferred pronoun. This helps, especially for those of us who communicate only in email, and you may have a name that is interpretive, such as Pat or Joey. So preferred pronouns help the responder understand he, she, her, etc. or him, his. Okay. Then you'll take your chapter 2 quiz. So you kind of get the rhythm, right? Once you get done with that quiz, we're going over the learning objectives. And then it's on to chapter 3. You could go on to chapter 3 from right here, or you could take a break, return home, and then click here for chapter 3 resources. Chapter 3 resources is going to run through the exact same way. We've got learning the content, managing generations in the workplace, Harvard generations in the workplace. And in chapter 3, we've got the slideshow and the videos and the slides with script. I've also put some additional proofreading resources for you. For those of you who don't use Grammarly, Grammarly is a great tool, and I've put a link to that at the bottom of Canvas, and many of you have already noticed that. Demonstrating your skills will be by completing My BCom Lab, and in this chapter, there's going to be a discussion posting. This particular discussion posting is as follows. Much of the advice about evaluating in this chapter refers to written communication. What are some ways that you can evaluate your oral communication? For example, when you speak at a meeting or interview, leave a voicemail or even give an oral presentation. Consider things that you can do in advance of delivering an oral message, things that you can do while you're delivering the message, as well as things you can do after to help you improve your communication in the future. Only one discussion posting and tip is needed. You do not need to respond to a colleague. You'll then have your chapter quiz. Once again, when you get done with this, there is going to be a little bonus activity. This is a complete bonus activity. You are not required to do it, but a great way to earn 25 points if you'd like. I've attached an article. This particular article here refers to typos and grammatical errors and spelling mistakes we've all made. And I know I've made one, a major one, years ago. That changed the entire message and caused quite a bit of havoc. Well, these are 16 of some of the worst typos and grammatical errors ever made. So if you want to earn 25 points, locate an external URL or resource of an unfortunate type error in business. Provide the URL for review. Share an example from either your personal or professional experience when a typo created a challenge or confusion in the workplace. Funny examples are encouraged. This is just between you and I, and you can submit it in a text box entry, a website, or URL. Perfect. So this completes the assignments for chapters 2 and chapters 3. I'm going to pause right there. Take a look here. Okay. Oh, I know. You see, Jimmy sees typos all the time, and some of them are really, really funny, but some of them can be disastrous. No, I don't think, Jimmy, you have a really good question. I don't think people do edit anymore or proofread. I think we've gotten so used to spell checkers, especially when it comes to texting. A lot of us use voice recorders, and we rely on the translation, which is horrible, and it can be potentially problematic. Okay, any questions about chapter 2? Yes, or too fast, exactly. Chapter 2 or chapter 3? Awesome. I'm going to pause here for just a second. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm back. All right. Now we're going to shift gears. And once again, my wonderful students, I need you to just